Kids, today I want to talk about the first debate, the Donald and Hillary show that was on last night. It was amazing. Yeah, amazing. So let's get right into what I thought about it. Now, first of all, for those of you that don't know me, I am not a fan of any of the candidates, all four of them. None. Zero. I hate Trump. Can't stand Hillary. I think Jill Stein is useless and would never ever be hired. And although for a short time I kind of thought that the libertarian candidates were entertaining, they ended up being entertaining in kind of a slapstick clown like without the makeup way. They ended up not being ready for prime time, which is sad because they actually were they were the least offensive and least disgusting of the options. And as an American, I have the freedom to think that our candidates are absolutely disgusting, and I'm horrified as a citizen to see that this is what my nation actually picked as the lead candidates for President of the United States. I couldn't think of any worse people. I mean, unless you put maybe Manson up for election. Trump and Hillary are right up there in Manson in my book. So let's get to the important point. Last night, if you didn't watch it, or you only watched it once, all the way through and looked at the mechanics and the facial expressions and the noise the audience made, which they weren't supposed to, and you didn't stop and either watch it again without looking at it and just listening, or stopping and rewinding and hearing exactly the words that were coming out of the people's mouths, the questions and the answers, you missed a whole lot. And I did several of those things. Now, I admit I do that for a reason, because I'm crazy. And when you're insane and you know you're insane and you've been insane your entire life, they teach you coping skills of how to deal with insanity, which obviously Trump never got. So I don't think he knows he's insane, and I think he desperately needs to be medicated. I think actually he needs to be Baker acted first, and then after that he needs to be convinced to stay in there for a month or two or 6 or 9 or a year or 3 and learn how to cope as an insane person in this world, because he obviously lives on an entirely different universe. Now, that doesn't mean I like Hillary any better, but Hillary has her own set of odious things that I just can't cope with. But meanwhile, at first, I thought right out of the bat that Hillary's whopper of "It's so nice to be with you tonight, Donald," could be taken two ways. It was either deliciously pure sarcasm, which is how I took it, or possibly the biggest lie of the night, or both. But then going through the entire debate, I realized that it was really delicious sarcasm, just served up cold. And it was brilliant. And again, I'm not a Hillary fan. I don't like her. Now, Donald's assertion that Hillary has been fighting ISIS her entire adult life, that was a quote. You can go back and listen to the quote. Donald actually said that on TV last night. Has to be the biggest lie, because ISIS isn't that old, and Hillary's older than dust. So that's just absurd. That's just simply absurd, and has to be the biggest lie of the night. So I have to give best moment of sarcasm to Hillary and biggest lie to Donald Trump. Now, in between, I listened, I actually backed things up several times. I watched twice and I backed things up twice, because one of the things you do when you cope with mental illness is that you want to make sure you're not tripping balls when you're listening to things or seeing things. So you ask people around you, did I really hear that? Did I really see that? So with DVR, you can actually stop, rewind it, and listen and say, yes, I actually did hear that insane shit. And I did that many times. And although they were both untruthful, Hillary had untruths that were kind of like this. It was just enough to keep her from people totally trusting her. It was she told fibs just enough that she kept her reputation of not being trustworthy. On the other hand, Donald went fucking all out, like he was like the Rose Parade of untruthfulness last night. He was just in another planet. And I thought to myself, where were the guys with the white coats and the straitjacket? Because someone should have called and had about halfway through that debate and had him Baker acted. They should have drug him off stage. They should have shot him up with Thorazine, dragged him to a mental hospital, left him in a cage until he woke up, and then let him meet the other inmates in an inpatient mental hospital. Having been to several myself, I can tell you one thing about the mentally ill. They don't accept, they have standards. The mentally ill have standards. Like, they're only put up with so much bullshit. If you're talking too crazy to a mentally ill person who's trying to, like, keep it on this planet somehow, which can be a struggle, but if you just start babbling on crazy bullshit and you do it loudly and arrogantly, the crowd's going to turn on you and they'll probably beat the shit out of you. Pick up furniture, throw it at you, hit you, whatever they need to do to shut you up. Complain about you, so they'll shoot you up, so that he'd be shot up with more Thorazine, etc., etc., etc. Then, when he finally woke up and realized that we weren't buying that, then he'd be shunned from the group until he learned to control his temperament, and he learned to control the tone of his voice, and he learned that he had to deal on life in reality, because that's the goal for all mentally ill people. So the fact that he wouldn't even fit into a mental hospital last night says the world. And the fact that millions of Americans, possibly hundreds of millions of Americans, actually believe his crap and listen to it like it's gospel is mind-blowing to me. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me. He came up with some stuff that just I couldn't even come up with. I mean, I couldn't even make it up in my own head. The 7 voices that talk in my head all day long were like, really? Like, how did he come up with that? Why don't we come up with shit like that? That's literally what I was going through my head. Now, Trump also talks in word salads. He is like Sarah Palin with a dick. Basically, he's Sarah Palin with a dick and a big loud voice. Sarah Palin just kind of whines around it, and Trump booms. He booms his word salad so it gets shoved in your ears, and all that fiber that I had to listen to last night from that word salad that he spat out for 90 minutes basically made me take a really big shit this morning, a really stiff one too, because it was just like pure fiber. There was no water in the salad. It was just fiber. Now, where to begin? Hillary was actually more behaved than I thought she would be. She was also more patient than she should have been. But women have a double standard. So she actually played Trump really well. And she led him into some stuff that he just bought hook, line, and sinker. And there's nothing more delicious than to grab somebody's ego and their bullshit and their screwed up mind and then drag them through a process that you want. Now that is called manipulation. And she is a great manipulator. Don't underestimate Hillary's ability to manipulate. She is the master blaster of manipulation. That's how she's gotten as far as she's got. And while she could have come off a little bit, I mean, because Donald Trump basically yelled at her and interrupted her and was a bully and was a complete asshole. And the more that he talked, the more stupid he sounded all night. And she kind of just sat back and listened to him. And his argument was that she has been personally responsible for every awful thing that's ever happened to this country since before this country was founded. And it's insane. And his line of Hillary, has been fighting ISIS her entire adult life, just was the candle, the frosting and candle on the cakes. That was just too much. Now, how Hillary can be responsible for absolutely everything, even when she's not in office, just mind-boggling. How could she be responsible for everything that Bill Clinton did, and she was only the first lady? She wasn't elected. She wasn't writing policies or anything like that. She can't be responsible for everything that happened under Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan or George W. Bush the first or Judge W. Bush the second or even President Obama. She can't be responsible for all that. Now, you can hold her responsible for certain things, but those things are like this much, and Trump tried to shove about this much down her throat. And it got to the point of being comical. On the other hand, Hillary has an optics problem. And here's her optics problem. First of all, people don't like her, and people don't trust her. Now, here in the state of Florida, I don't know where it's like anywhere else, but here in the state of Florida, Hillary runs this commercial. She runs a lot of commercials, and everybody runs a lot of commercials in Florida. We're like that one state that just gets bombarded constantly with political commercials. And I don't know if you ever watched RuPaul's Drag Race back in the first couple of seasons, but they used to light RuPaul. They used to put this white makeup on RuPaul and then light her up so she looked like a ghost. It made her look younger, and it made her look glowing. I mean, literally glowing. They've toned it down, and they've learned how to light her better. But Hillary has a commercial where she's lit kind of like RuPaul back in season 1, 2, and maybe 3. And it's frightening. She looks 25 years younger, maybe 30 years younger. She doesn't even look like she's alive. She looks like the ghost of Hillary Clinton. Now, she either's going to have to stick with that look, the ghost of Hillary Clinton, or the look that she came out with last night, which is the wrinkled, chipmunk-cheeked, mouth like a chicken's ass kind of look, like an older woman. That's just how older women look. It's just the nature of the beast. There's nothing wrong with it. If you're attracted to women, then that gets hot after a while. I guess when you're 75 years old and you're an old dude that likes women, you just want to basically screw a chicken's ass. Right? Right. So Hillary did her homework, and she sounded relatively intelligent most of the time when she got a chance to speak and was not completely interrupted or shouted over by Trump. And she at least had a grasp. Well, you might not agree with her view or her outlook on things, but at least she knew what the hell she was talking about. Trump clearly demonstrated he has no idea what he's talking about. And worse, he denied things that he said. I've heard him say it. There's tapes of people. He's on tape saying it. He's on the news saying it. He's on Twitter saying it. It's easy to look up. You can't lie. In this day and age, Mr. Trump, you just can't lie. You can't say shit and then say you didn't say shit. Like, you did say you wanted to give Japan and South Korea and Saudi Arabia nuclear weapons. You said that. I heard you say it. And you denied that. You've said all kinds of stuff, outrageous things, to get your crazy base, or as Hillary likes to call it, the basket of deplorables, on board and all feverish for you. Now, do I think that Hillary made a good statement with basket of deplorables? It sounded condescending, and it sounded leftist, and it sounded elitist, and she's a leftist elitist, so I don't know what you're supposed to expect. You have two different kinds of assholes in this country. You have the right assholes who are kind of crass and crude, and they don't think much, and they just say nasty things, and they don't think about them, so they don't even have to necessarily make sense. And then you have the shrill, nasty, elitist left, and by shrill I don't mean just women. Men can be shrill too. And there are some elitist leftist men that just are like nails on a chalkboard to me. I don't like the extreme left, and I don't like the extreme right. And the middle is totally asleep. So I like them because they never have anything to say. They just kind of keep it quiet, or they're just totally tuned out. So I can stand here in the middle and just talk all day long because I have the whole stage to myself, which is great. Absolutely great. So how do I say this? Hillary talks to a certain group, and Donald talks to a certain group. And no matter what they say, neither of those groups are going to ever hang them for their words. Donald could sit out there and lie all day, tell the biggest fibs in the worst language, and be as offensive and crass and crude as possible. And his base would just be like, yay, we just need this refreshing change. We need a real ignorant dickhead in there to shake things up. And then Hillary can get really granular and sounding like she talks like the fine print on a long contract. That's Hillary. She's got the personality of the fine print on a long contract. So by the time you finish trying to read the fine print on a long contract, which if try it one day, it's dry, it's boring, it can be contradictory, and in the end, it leaves all these open-ended things so that they have every right to come after you, but you have no right to come after them. That's Hillary. And she thinks she's doing a good job at it, but there's a group of people that don't read the fine print, so they just hate her, even though the fine print says you can't. They do. And since I'm in the middle, and I'm no fan of either. Now, I've met Donald Trump in person. I've met him in person. I worked for the man for just a brief few minutes. And he's the biggest asshole and the cheapest fuck I've ever met in my life. And I'd never vote for him under any circumstances. He's absolutely odious. And I've been Clinton adjacent several times in my life. I've never actually shook her hand or anything, but I've been close enough that I've heard her talk to her staff in private and the people around her in private. And she is temperamental, to say the least. And that's putting it diplomatically. Let's just say that she can be a raging bitch, and she can be kind of paranoid, actually. That's just my moments of being Clinton adjacent. So neither one of them is a prize for this country at all. But if you had to look on the whole, and you had to, who would you choose? Would you choose Donald Trump because you want just chaos and you want to see how it turns out, and you're hoping, and then because Donald Trump could last anywhere from 2 months in office to 8 years in office. He could start World War III. He could file bankruptcy on the United States. He could stop paying everybody. He can do whatever he wants, just like he runs his empire or his business right into the ground. And he could do that to this country very easily. And then you have Clinton, who is the queen of the establishment of the left and the establishment of the right, which is the mainstream or more moderate Republicans. She is just perfect politics. Now, we've seen what perfect politics does. Not much. Nothing really ever gets done. Lots of talk, little action. I agree with Trump on that. But then you have Trump, who's complete chaos, and he's going to end up like that little dictator they just hired in the Philippines as their president, and just run around starting insulting everybody and pissing everybody off and losing investments and running his country right into the ground and killing his own countrymen because he doesn't like them. So, what is it that you choose? Personally, I'd love to see a military coup. Personally, I'd vote for your refrigerator if it's running. Personally, I'd do Grumpy Cat and somebody's blind, old, angry Chihuahua as vice president. Or Ren and Stimpy. Or Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. Anything would be better than what we have. And when we get to the vice presidential debates, I'm going to come back because both of them have the personality of wallpaper paste. And they look so similar, I can't tell them apart. The only thing I know is one is truly wallpaper paste and one is kind of evil wallpaper paste because he's that guy that tries to cram religion down everybody's throat, I think. I have to look more into him. But I think he's the guy from Indiana that shoved that religious bill up everybody's ass, and then he got such backlash for it that he had to take it back. And when you're that rah over something and you have to take it back, kind of speaks volumes. And Trump, who's been so rah over many things and now is having to take it all back, you have to wonder, where do you stand? At least with Hillary, you know what you're going to stand. You're going to get 8 more years of pretty much nothing. It's going to stay kind of, it's going to go a little, it's going to go a little, go a little, but it's not going to be this just psychotic mess. And we're not going to wake up every morning in a different world. And Hillary, although she is a jingo and she could put us in World War III, Trump's mouth alone could probably get us in World War III on Inauguration Day, just while he's standing up there with holding his right hand up in the air, and the speech afterwards, he could start World War III right then. So it depends on how much of a thrill ride you're really looking for. In the meantime, stay safe. I enjoyed our little talk. I hope that you guys actually listen to the questions being asked and listen to the word salad responses, because 80-something% of the time, Trump, I would say 98% of the time, and Hillary probably 95% of the time, 96% of the time. She's slightly better at it, but not much. Don't answer questions that they're being asked. They basically formulate talking points that sound like they're starting to answer a question just to keep the moderator or the question asker shut up, and then they just say whatever they want to say. Listen to that. And tell me how much you really want to hear that for the next 8 years or the next 4 years. And then also tell me what you think would be more fun. Now, Trump supporters, and this is a fact, Trump supporters have said the day Trump wins, they're going to go out and have a big nigger hunt. That's a quote. A big nationwide nigger hunt. They're going to do a nigger shoot. Like a turkey shoot. That's what Trump supporters want when Trump wins, because they know that Trump's going to pay all their bills in court because he said he would. And of course, Trump always pays his bills, right? Or do you want to see Hillary win? And if you see Hillary win, you'll see a broader section of America happy, but you're going to have this really angry white backlash. And it's going to be a very specific part of the white population, because a lot of white people actually vote for Hillary too, believe it or not. But because not all white people are the same, just like not all anybody's the same. But you're going to see this white call for civil war if Hillary wins. So it's either going to be civil war or civil war. It all depends on how you want to see it started. So keep that in mind too, because as we get farther apart, the closer it gets to the election, this country's just been begging for a civil war. They've been working on it for about 12 years now. And I've been saying it for a long time. I said this country wants to refight the Civil War. And we might just get our chance. We might not. Who knows? I'm crazy. What the hell do I know? I'm just expressing my opinions. And we all know opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. Have a nice day.